Well, I can't believe it's here already, but we're up to my 100th review. So what's it gonna be? I figured since it's a relatively momentous occasion, I should pick something from my personal early years of gaming. In this case, it's I think the second PC game I've ever played, and the first FPS game I've ever touched. That honor goes to Wolfenstein 3D. When I first played it, I was only about 7 years old, and let me tell you, as a kid, this game scared the shit out of me. I remember jumping out of my seat when I turned a corner and heard German dialect. Maybe part of it was that I liked to play the game in a low-light environment. That, and I was 7. Anyway, I played this game on an old Tandy computer with DOS shell and Windows 3.1. The only other games I had access to at the time were Commander Keen 1 and 4, and the standard Windows Solitaire and Minesweeper. I'll admit I played Keen a lot more than Wolfenstein, but as I got older I realized how much fun Wolfenstein 3D was. In Wolf 3D, you play as William Blazkowicz, who is otherwise known as BJ. There are 6 total episodes, and although each one has a slightly different story, each one follows BJ as he defeats a Nazi bigwig and stifles the regime. It's not a heavy storyline, although at the end of every episode you get the story to the next one. The whole point of the game is to go through each of the stages, collecting stolen treasure and killing Nazis. Of course, you'll be wanting to keep an eye on your health and ammo, and pick up weapons as needed. Fortunately, the game is very simple to get the hang of, but difficult to master due to the multitude of secrets found in the game. I'm not going to go into the mechanics of how the game was 3D at the time. If you really want to know that, that's what the internet's for. In any case, it was very impressive. Now if you look at it today, of course it's not the best looking game. However, it still beats out some of the more modern games I've seen. If you get up to the walls, they are quite pixelated. The objects and enemies are not animated in a 3-dimensional state, instead are sprites, which are basically pictures. In other words, if you walk around them, they rotate. Or, if you look at a corpse and you walk around it, they look exactly the same. Get what I'm talking about? If not, tough shit. It's just a limitation in the engine. And it was fairly common to have sprites be the enemies, environmental objects in this generation of 3-dimensional games. Now in saying that, there are a few things that don't make any sense, and that's not including the fact that there's no ceiling or floor textures. First, how about these purple walls? I didn't realize that this was a sci-fi game where there's alien growths on the walls of Castle Wolfenstein. Second, the layout of the castle is absolutely confusing. There are rooms ending in nothing, and sometimes enemies will just be sitting in a small 1 foot by 1 foot room, waiting for you to open a door. And those rooms usually don't have any kind of environmental objects like chairs or tables. That's another thing. There's not many objects laying around. You think you find some armories, war rooms, etc., but instead, objects are limited to lights, barrels, tables, chairs, pots and pans, and an occasional pillar. Seems a bit plain. Yeah, I know, it's probably another limitation of the engine, but I'm just pointing this kind of stuff out. Hey, I notice it, I report it. But to be serious, there's one major thing I hate about the game. There is no map system. Remember, this was before the real heyday of the internet walkthrough, so many times as a kid I was spending hours just wandering around looking for rooms I've never been in, just for a simple key to open a door. This was only the shareware version too, so there was a maximum of 1 key to find. So imagine a 7 years old running around the castle with nothing but a pistol and a few bullets left, trying to find a lone key and not sure where the next Nazi soldier was hiding. You may be laughing at me right now, but I was young and scared at the time. Anyway, let's talk about the weapons and enemy types. In fact, let's start with the weapons. You always start with the knife and pistol, along with 8 bullets. There was no such thing as reloading or ammo types, so that's one thing you'll never have to worry about in Wolfenstein 3D. The knife is nothing but a last-ditch weapon, and if you get stuck fighting one of the mutants or an SS soldier with only that, you may as well reload a previous save. The pistol isn't half bad, but it's useless once you acquire a better weapon. Next is the machine gun, and it's my personal favorite. It has a good firing rate and decent power. It's also fairly easy to find. If you can't find one laying around, you can just kill one of the blue uniformed soldiers to grab his. Finally, you can find a green chain gun. Although it can kill many of the enemies in one double-fired blast, if you're not careful, it'll eat up your ammo very quickly, and then you'll be stuck with the knife. Now, although the machine gun is found pretty much everywhere, the chain gun is a bit harder to find. Most of the times, it's hidden in a secret room. only accessible by pushing in specific walls. These secrets are everywhere, and every level has anywhere from 1 to over a dozen of them. Although finding them isn't a complete necessity, they often have treasure behind them. More importantly, weapons, ammo, or health. Sometimes these secrets are pretty obvious by a different colored panel on the wall, or just a picture in a weird spot. But many times they blend in perfectly, so that the only way to find them is just to move along a wall holding the spacebar. The other problem with this is that you can only ever open one secret at a time. So if you're in the vicinity of 2 or more secrets, you may miss them just because another one is opening at the time. If you don't see the reason to find all the secrets, well, it counts to a bonus point value at the end of each floor, and a total rating at the end of each game. With each level, you're rated on your clear speed, kills, treasures picked up, and secrets found. If you get 100% in either of the kills, treasures, or secrets categories, you gain an extra 10,000 point bonus. If you somehow manage to beat the par time, you get about 500 points per second. However, if you beat par time, it means you didn't get 100% on everything else. My little tip, don't bother beating the par times if you're going for a high score. Oh, and the high scores do save when the game shuts down, since this is a PC game. And unlike other FPS games, this one actually contains a life system. Every 40,000 points nets you a new life. You can also find orbs with BJ's head in them, which gets you 25 bullets, full health, and another extra life. Lose all of your lives and the game is over. Plus, when you die, you start the floor again with just your pistol. This is why it's kind of important to save frequently, although if you want to gung-ho it like I do, you won't use the save system to save your ass when you do die. Tough it out with your pistol, you pansy. Speaking of dying, you may have noticed that there's 2 effective ways to see how much health you have. The obvious one is the numerical value. The other is by your picture. Basically, the more damage you take, the uglier BJ looks. If you're nearing death, he'll look the part. I remember as a kid hating that, but as I look at it now, I realize how freaking cool it is to see BJ on death's door but fighting anyway. So it's kind of funny how you can pick up food and watch BJ get healthier. Speaking of food, I may as well talk about the health power-ups you can find. There's only really 3 of them. One of them is the regular plate of food, which restores 10% of your health. You can also find health packs laying around, which store 25%. Finally, for the real desperate adventurer, you can eat the bowl of dog food. However, that only restores 4%. So at this point, we've talked about the weapons that will slay the Nazis, and also the stuff that will pick you up when you're taking shots. But who's going to be attacking you? Well, for the most part, the regular Nazi soldiers will be the ones, and they're just toting regular pistols. They'll go down in a few shots. Next is the blue SS soldier, a guy toting a machine gun. He takes quite a few hits, but when he dies, he'll drop his weapon if you don't already have one in possession. You'll also run into attack dogs, which you'll need to kill. You don't run into them often, and you can usually take them out with a knife slash or one accurate shot. Next up depends on what episode you're playing. You may find the mutants, who were altered by the Nazi bigwigs to eventually be a weapon of the war. They fire with the pistol through their chest, but because they never say anything when they spot you, they can do some heavy damage or even kill you before you even know that they're around. Finally, you'll meet the white-clad officers, who are similar to the regular soldiers but are a bit quicker and tougher. That's also not including the bosses. For the most part, floor 9 of each episode ends with a boss battle, and they're all a bit bigger and tougher than you are, sometimes requiring about 50 bullets to effectively kill. They can be difficult to dodge, because most of them carry an automatic weapon of some sort. 2 of the bosses have actual projectile weapons, making them a little bit easier to dodge. Also, upon killing the boss, they'll die in an extremely messy scene, and in every episode other than one, you'll see a death cam shot, which is basically the instant replay of the death. However, the main talking point with the bosses is the episode 3 boss, who's Hitler. He can be a bitch if you're not prepared. You'll have to fight several fake Hitlers who look oddly like magicians that throw some sort of fireball at you. Once you see the real Hitler, you may shit yourself because he's a freaking robot suit. By now, I hope you still have some ammo left, because if not, you're screwed. Don't worry though, there is some ammo laying around in corners of the room. After destroying the robot armor, Hitler comes after you some more. Without his armor this time though. Now it's time to finish him off. Once you kill him, you can sit back and watch him explode.
Eva, auf Wiedersehen.
Now, the game is fun, but because there's not a ton of stuff to do other than go from the elevator, possibly find a key, and exit while killing stuff and finding treasures, it can start to get a little redundant after a while. If you get lost, it can be even more frustrating. However, you can also try to flesh out the game a bit by going for a perfect score. I used to be able to finish the first episode on the hardest difficulty with 100% across the board, but but it's not easy, and it's been a while since I've done it, so my skill level with it kind of decreased. Plus, as a kid, all I had access to was the first episode, which was available for free as shareware. Steam had an id sale at some point, and that's when I bought Wolfenstein 3D. That was the first time I ever was able to actually play episodes 2 through 6. It was fun for a while, but again, it all starts to look the same after a while. However, the fact that with the registered full game you get about 60 total stages, that's quite a feat. It can take hours upon hours to complete everything. Now, you look at modern FPS games that give you, what, 8 hours of gameplay at most with maybe a dozen stages if you're lucky? I think some games need to take a look at Wolfenstein and realize graphics aren't everything, but gameplay is. Actually, I do have one thing to say that doesn't really deal with gameplay. When you attempt to quit, whether it be by the main menu or the F10 key, you get one of a few different quit messages. All of them require you to press N or Y to proceed with playing or quitting. It's just one little detail that might make you smile. Oh, and just like every other game of the time, there were cheat codes available for those who needed them. By typing -goobers at the end of the command line to load the game, it will allow you to press Shift, Alt, and Backspace in game to enable a debug mode. After this, you can press Tab and a key to enable certain cheats, like Tab and G for God mode. Wolfenstein 3D is a fun, classic game that I still play from time to time. It has a certain place in my heart just because of all the time I spent in my youth playing it. Besides, just look at what games Wolfenstein 3D introduced me to.
You no mess with Lo Wang.
Definitely give this one a shot if you never have, because it is part of an FPS legacy. It may not hold your attention for long, but it is definitely enjoyable. Final score? 9 out of 10. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.